Hey there everybody, this is Caitlin here, aka Scribble Sketch, and I am back once again with another Force of Will discussion video for you on Card Game Wednesday. My apologies that the video is actually coming out a lot later in the day / night, depending on your time zone, due to me coming back home from MCM Scotland and having to go from coming straight home to straight into work because I was working Monday and Tuesday, and also suffering a little bit from con flu because you can probably hear a little bit in my voice. I am still a little bit sore in my throat, so my apologies if this video isn't very long. I don't want to waste my voice too much because obviously I still need to do talking when I go back to work and whatnot, so that's why I'm probably going to keep this video as short as I can, but still give you enough content so that, you guys feel like you're still getting the content that you wanted for today. And what is today's topic in particular? Well, we've got a lot of new and awesome artwork that has been released thanks to the new start of the cluster for new Valhalla. We've got all the different starter decks, and we have the new Dawn Rises expansion, or rather the first set, so I am pretty excited about that. I am going to make it like a point in this at the beginning of the video. This video is like my top 5 artwork that I like as of right now. At the current point of me recording this, not all of the artwork from both the starter decks and the first set has been released. This is basically from my collection of artwork that I've managed to find both on Twitter, on Pixiv, and also the guys over at TCG Scrubs were very helpful in collecting some artwork and whatnot, so please check out their Facebook page if you want to see some of the other artwork. They've managed to collect a lot of it by going through Twitter and going through Pixiv and whatnot, so if you're looking for like a good database to try and find all these artworks and everything, then definitely go check out their Facebook page. I'll probably put a link in the description so you can go find them. And also you should probably check out their YouTube channel because they have a pretty good content and I'm subscribed to them. I quite enjoyed their news content and everything right now. But after all the little plugs and everything, we're going to start with the artwork here. The first one that I'm pointing out here is my first pick, is this card, or rather this artwork, featuring Hansel and Gretel in the Misty Woods. Now, I actually quite like this artwork for a number of reasons, because it helps transition into basically the newest reincarnations of Hansel and Gretel, because we've seen these characters quite a number of times, actually. They've pretty much appeared in the majority of the clusters. I think they've appeared in the same amount of clusters as Alice has at this point, or maybe even more, mainly because they first appeared in Grim Cluster, where they were wind resonators, and then they also appeared in Lapis Cluster where they were light resonators, and now they've come full circle and they are here once again in New Valhalla Cluster where they are now blue resonators. And I find it kind of interesting because obviously Loki is a bit of an ambivalent figure. I'd say Loki is evil at this point, but it doesn't really stay true to Loki's character. Loki is all about chaos and, madness and whatnot, so for them to summon fairy tale creatures, but for the fairy tale creatures themselves to be a lot more different than the ones we're used to be seeing, because obviously Rhea used some fairy tales from the Rhea cluster. She had Dark Riding Hood, she had like Dark Grim, she had a couple of more sinister looking fairy tales, but definitely not in the same vein as Loki's fairy tales here, because Hansel and Gretel do look quite sinister, and I think there's like an underlying creepy tone in this artwork in particular. What I mean is, the main colour, obviously, the first thing you look at this picture, you see blue. You see all these different shades of blue. It's making up the trees, it's making up the house, the ground, it's making up the fence. It's the predominant colour, if not on both of their outfits, even though like white is also a bit of a predominant colour. But I think that's mainly to contrast with the blue. Blue is just everywhere in this, and it does help to symbolise Loki as a blue ruler, but I think the blue in its different kind of darker shades gives off a bit of a creepy vibe. Like, if you think of blue, you probably think of like water or something like that. But for me, when I think of blue, I think of like cold, I think of mist, I think of something that's quite a little bit eerie. It's definitely like the different shades of blue can bring out very different emotions and whatnot, and I think the blue coupled in with like the splotches rather of red definitely sets off a sinister tone. What do I mean by that? Well, the little tricklings of red in the treetops definitely make the leaves look like blood splatters, and also there's like just a hint of red on the tiles of the roof in the house definitely gives off this more creepy aura or creepy vibe. Also, out of the two characters, Gretel is the one that actually sports red as opposed to Hansel. Hansel is mainly about, he's got white, he's got blue, he's got like a little bit green on his hat here, but he's not got any red on him whatsoever, whereas Gretel does. She's got like the red ribbon and everything, so that kind of sets her off as maybe the more, I want to say, either unstable or the more sinister of the two characters, even though they are definitely changed, and these reincarnations of them are going to be very different to any of the Hansel and Gretels that we've known previously. But those are the main reasons why I like this arc in particular. It's like a sense of foreboding. It's like, hey, here's a familiar face, but it's not going to be a familiar character and whatnot. It's like setting you up for a fall here. It's like, do you remember this face? Well, tough, because this one is going to be a lot different, and you're going to be in for a hell of an emotional ride. Next up is a lovely piece of darkness artwork here. We have Lucifer. Now, I fell in love with Lucifer's design pretty much the instant I saw him. I love his design because obviously you've seen Lucifer in many different forms and many different states. He's been drawn in various ways. But I really like this interpretation of him. Just the way that like his colours complement the kind of darkness theme. Because most of the time when you see darkness resonators, it's all about the black and the grey and the purple. Purple seems to be a pretty predominant colour for darkness in particular. And I feel like everything just melds together perfectly in this image. You've got like the purple that blends into the black, but it also blends into the grey and whatnot, and the slight hint of maroon on like the main part of like Lucifer's kind of jackety / shirt kind of thing. But the framing of it is actually really nice. Normally I don't really like artworks where like the character is like dead in center, profile shot, it could be used for a passport photo, but I think it actually works really well here because it's almost like a portrait of a painting, because you know you've got Lucifer crying here on one side, but he's also got his like symbol on the other half of his face. You've got the rain pouring down everywhere, there's feathers scattered everywhere. It feels really, really emotional, and I'm not quite sure if it's like an eclipsed sun in the background or a black moon, but it definitely gives off this vibe, and like behind him you definitely get this vibe of like runes and like the apocalypse and stuff like that. It definitely like brings out this dark and dingy emotional vibe, and definitely I could probably see this like hanging out like as a painting or whatever, because you can just see the details and the emotion that you're trying to get out here of obviously Lucifer being a fallen angel, the leader of the fallen angels, and he, you know, carrying out the work of the god that he serves, which is Satan, in the regards to force of will here. So definitely I can feel the emotion coming from this artwork in particular. His solemn face, even as he's crying, he just has no emotion, and it just feels like he's just been emptied of all emotion whatsoever. That he has nothing left to give. He's just empty of everything, and like his heart is just hollow. You get that feeling from it, definitely. That's probably why I've made this my second pick. Next up, we actually are brightening up a little bit here, and we have an overabundance of light and silver here. I particularly picked out this artwork mainly because I quite like the contrast in terms of the kind of, we had the contrast there, we had lots of purple and like black blending together, but I actually really like this for several reasons because of the different tones of grey and / silver. Obviously grey is a little bit of a harder colour to work with, especially when you're trying to utilise it with other colours. You don't want to make it feel like it's too monotonous, you don't want it to make it look like it's like a vintage black and white photo or something like that, because you know, if you've got too much grey, it can end up just looking like you've kind of like made it into like a black and white photo, and it doesn't really pop as well. But I like all the different aspects of like the silver metallic armour with the kind of whitish greyish cloth in the background, where it's almost like silhouettes that maybe look like it's from like a window, or maybe it's like looking into the past one, because you do get to see a planet in the background. I think it's meant to actually be the moon, but because of like the way that the buildings are kind of addressed here, it's kind of hard to tell whether we're looking at the moon or whether we are like on some kind of smaller satellite / star looking out onto some other planet. But I really like the composition here, especially with the other little kind of soldier warrior guys in the background. It makes me think, wow, these previous incarnations are like lending the strength to the guy that's at the front here. And obviously you get the fallen swords and everything, and like what seems to be rubble or ruin in the background. Makes you think that this guy has been through a lot, or he's carrying a lot of weight on his shoulders. His armor also reminds me a lot of Ryoma from Fire Emblem Fates, so that's maybe why I'm quite interested in his design. It's mainly the faceplate armor that makes me think of the good old lobster prince and everything like that. Definitely, if like if Ryoma had like a shiny version of him, if he was like a Pokemon from Pokemon Go or something like that, or he was like had a shiny exclusive, definitely I would pick up this guy. This guy seems to be like his shiny alternative or something like that. But I quite like it, and I think it's quite nice. It kind of gives off this vibe of like ready to fight, ready to avenge the fallen and everything, but it's still like upholding that kind of like holy kind of spiritual essence that going about it, definitely with the different tones of like the greys and the silvers and the white, but definitely not overcompensating like brighter colors. Like it's more muted, so it doesn't like get too in your face and whatnot. Next up, I had to represent my girl Isis. I managed to pick up her deck. It was actually given to me as a present for my birthday. So thank you very much to my friend who gave me the Isis starter deck for my birthday and whatnot, because I was really looking forward to getting her. I was stuck between all the different Isis artworks, like the ones for her actual ruler, the ones for some of the cards that feature her. I had to actually end up picking this one in particular, because this one is one that really hits home to me. I don't know why. It's kind of hard because obviously it's featuring her and like 2 of her disc weapons or whatever. But this one is actually kind of interesting because I like how she's pulling finger guns on like one of her hands, but the other hand is like supporting slash levitating one of the blades. But she's kind of got this kind of like gleaming look on her face. I'm not quite sure if it's the makeup under her eyes, like the kind of smudged effect that kind of brings out the yellow and the golden from her eyes. It makes her look almost kind of sinister slash ready to like destroy whoever is opposing her. Like all the fire, the yellows and the orange tones and everything surrounding her is great because it obscures some of her figure, so it makes it seem like you know, she's ready to like surprise attack, but these weapons are coming in at you fast. So it's like, hey, too bad you didn't dodge that. Now these blades are going to get into your face. I really like it for those reasons, and you can't really see too much of the background, like anything that's behind her, but I think that's mainly the point. You know, she comes in with a flurry of flames. She's all about burning, like her whole deck idea is all about burning your opponent, burning their resonators, punishing them and whatnot with fire, and she kind of encompasses that with this artwork, which I really appreciate. And obviously I adore Isis's design. I think it's really neat. Her whole gimmick and everything, and like the Egyptian theme with her is what really drew me in with her deck specifically, and I'm really glad that I managed to pick up her deck, and I'm hoping, guys, that I can make a deck profile for that soon once I've modified it and once I've actually gotten some cards from New Dawn Rises. So hopefully look forward to that. And yeah, that's probably why I've picked this card specifically. I knew I was going to have to pick an Isis card because I just adore her artwork, so I had to pick at least something to represent her. And finally, we are back to some good old darkness, and this time we have ourselves a lovely little vampire in the form of Vlad. Now, I think this is the first time that Vlad has appeared as a male. If I'm remembering correctly, the first time Vlad appeared, I don't remember whether he appeared in the original Valhalla, but I remember the first time I ever saw Vlad in Force of Will was obviously the, what's it called? The, not New Valhalla, it's called Vingolf. Not New Valhalla, I mean Vingolf. The first time I saw them was in Vingolf, where it was obviously based on the mobile game where the different historical figures were actually cute anime girls. Vlad was obviously there, made their debut as a ruler, a pretty good ruler that still sees decent play and wonder, if I remember correctly. Vlad, Tempo, and everything like that is definitely a very popular deck to run, and this is the first time I think we are seeing Vlad represented as some kind of male. I am pretty sure they're meant to be male in this image just because of the way that they are drawn here. I could be wrong though, so please correct me if I'm maybe wrong and this Vlad is still a female, but it looks like a male. When I initially saw the artwork for this, I was thinking, has Lapis back? Has Lapis evil again or something like that? Because the art style is pretty similar to Lapis, especially the hairstyle. Pretty similar, like the kind of soft tufts of white hair, but as you can see, this Vlad is sporting some pretty long braids, like going into a little bit of a ponytail here, or 2 long braids and everything. So definitely not our Lapis. Sorry, Lapis, R.I.P. You're gone, but not forgotten. But I really, really like this artwork. It's kind of very different in a way to the Lucifer artwork, and I'll explain why. As opposed to Lucifer, where it was strictly like black and purple, there's like a hint of everything else, and this artwork is mainly supported by deep colours of red slash maroon. Now, obviously, this Vlad is a vampire, so you'd expect to see a little bit of red here and there to represent the bloodlust, the bloodthirst. You know, vampires obviously craving the blood. The moon in the background is obviously tinted to be kind of a maroonish, pinkish red colour, and there's splatterings of like red all over the place. Where has this blood come from? Who knows? Because at first I thought Vlad was holding a cup when I initially saw it, but turns out no, he's not. But it looks like the blood is coming from his hand, even though his hand is encompassing some kind of glowing aura type thing, whether it's a soul or whether it's some kind of spirit, I'm not too sure. But it does make it look like he's like crushed some kind of foe, because the blood is like splattering from his hand. You can see some of it dripping down his hand, staining his fingers and everything like that, while the blood just flows about crazy everywhere. Definitely gives off an image that he's just done, like, or rather he's just had a fresh kill and it's still fresh on his hand, and he is ready for more. You can see the blood on his cheek, you can see the blood red in his eyes, like the blacks, whites, or rather the whites have turned black. He is definitely not to be messed with. He is a creature of the night, and he will warn you of that. He will show you that he is not to be messed with. I found it actually interesting that vampires fall under the Lich King, or rather the Lich King, however you want to pronounce it. I was very, very surprised by that, because I thought it was going to be strictly zombies or skeletons, but to see vampires splashed in there as well, I guess that means that Rhea could potentially get some more playthings or whatever in terms of vampire builds, or we get some new neat vampires that we could use in Wanderer with Vlad slash Mikage, Rezard, if you want to like pick any other vampires. But I am glad to see that we're getting a little bit more vampire representation. Even though I thought the vampires were going to be dead and buried with this cluster, when I was like, hey, there's no vampire ruler, so we won't see vampires, I was like, psych, we've got more vampires. So I'm glad to see we have Vlad back in a new form. Definitely very different to the previous incarnations of Vlad, but I'm quite liking it. I hope this Vlad can feature on a couple of more artworks in the future for future sets and whatnot. It would be a shame to just waste the potential of this character design on one card, so I hope we get to see Vlad in more cards in the future. But that is everything, guys, for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down below which cards down below would you really pick as your top 5 faves. Personally, these are the ones from the ones I've collected, but if there's a card that hasn't had its artwork released yet, but you really like the design or the artwork going on it, please let me know down below. I love to hear you guys' thoughts and suggestions on these things when I do these kind of topics of discussion. Let me know what you think, your choices in particular. They could be very different from mine, or you might have ones in particular that you actually agreed with me. Let me know down below, guys. I want to hear your thoughts on the matter, and until next time, I will see you all later. This video was made possible thanks to patrons such as Alucard and Craig McCutcheon.